Hey everybody, it's David Pike, Motorcity Mechanic, back with another video. Today I'm going to show you how to check the fluid in an 8-speed transmission on this Dodge Ram pickup. Now the procedure for checking the fluid in the 8-speed is kind of lengthy. There's a lot of different steps. There's no dipstick tube with a dipstick that you pull out and check. Not anymore. Usually, in a normal situation, you wouldn't even have a need to check the fluid unless you notice there's a fluid leak or you're having some kind of a shifting issue. What we're going to be doing is, I'm going to run step by step what we're going to be following. So part of checking the fluid in the 8-speed transmission is getting it off the ground and actually getting the back tires to rotate. That's one of the steps I'm going to go through in just a few seconds again to reiterate what you need to do. But the process of jacking it up is what I want to cover right this second. Now, transmission needs to be as level as possible, same with the vehicle. So jacking up the rear of the vehicle and putting it on jack stands isn't going to work. That's basically what you would probably try to do if you were checking it at home. Unfortunately, once you jack up the rear, the vehicle is no longer level, meaning the fluid inside the transmission is no longer level, meaning we're not going to get an accurate reading. We need to get the whole vehicle off the ground. If that means 4 jack stands, so be it. But for safety reasons, I'd rather you use a vehicle lift to get it off the ground, which most people don't have at home, which means a shop. So it's going to be up to you however you manage to get the vehicle off the ground. But keep in mind, jacking the rear up so we can get the tires to spin isn't going to help us in the long run because we will not get the fluid level correct like we want. Now the first step we need to do is go ahead and do a pre-check on the fluid level. Now go ahead and start the vehicle up. Now you can do this on the ground. Just make sure you've got the wheels chalked, you've got the emergency brake on. I just want you to be safe being under the vehicle while it's running. And we're going to remove that drain plug and see if anything comes out. If nothing comes out, we're going to add a little fluid. If something does come out, we're going to ahead and let it drain till it stops. Put the fill plug back in. Right here on the passenger side, going back to the back of the transmission, there's going to be an access plug. That's actually where you put fluid in if you're going to be doing a trans service or if you're doing any kind of repairs. That's where you're going to put the fluid in. That's also where we're going to check the fluid level. And what we'll do is we'll back it off. Now it's a 8mm Allen. Get up in there, it's kind of tight. Once you break it loose, you can pretty much do it the rest of the way by hand. Now, you may get some fluid come out. If so, don't be concerned, that's good. Just make sure you got a catch pan up underneath to catch it all. If you don't have any fluid come out, this is where you need to go ahead and add some fluid. Once it starts coming out, you'll put the bolt back in place, and then we'll go through the actual procedure on checking the fluid level. This one has some fluid coming out, so we're good. We'll go ahead and put the bolt back in place. Now we don't have to tighten it at this point. We'll just put it kind of snugged up by hand because we will be taking it right back off. Just run it down. Now with step 2, what we're going to be doing, we're going to go ahead and disable the ESP. Just like I showed you on the Ram trucks where the button is and what to look for on the cluster to show that it is disabled, we want to make sure we take care of that because once again, the vehicle is going to be off the ground, back tires are going to be spinning, front will not. We don't want the ABS to kick in to cause the back tires to pulsate as far as the brakes to come to a stop. We don't want that happening, so definitely we're going to have to disable the ESP. Now the Chargers, 300s, Durangos, Grand Cherokees, anything that has 8-speed in it, now you'll disable it basically the same way. You'll find the button somewhere on the dash, if it's around the radio or somewhere around the cluster. We'll disable that and make sure that's turned off. Now the ESP button on this particular vehicle is right below the radio. And directly below the AC controls, you've got a selection of buttons here. Depending on the vehicle, you may have more or less. This is your traction control button right here. Every time you turn it off and on, it's going to illuminate a light on the cluster. So you want to press it to where the light comes on the cluster. Now we need to press the button. The ESP, which is a car with squiggly lines and the word off, comes on. This is in the tack area of this vehicle. The light makes it a little fuzzy, I apologize, but there is your ESP. So every time I turn the button off, on, the light's going to come on and off. Now I want the light to be on. That disables the traction control. Step 3. Now we need to get the vehicle up off the ground. Now we only need the tires to be off the ground about 8 to 10 inches at this point. We don't need to get too high because number one, we still got to get back in the vehicle and we've got to run through the initial steps. So step 3 is going to be basically getting the vehicle off the ground. Now if you're doing it on the ground using floor jacks and jack stands, please take care to make sure you don't cause any damage to the vehicle or anything to yourself. Keep safety in mind throughout this. If you're using vehicle lift, great. Like I said, just keep it off about 8 to 10 inches, or when you get to that first safety catch on a lift, that would be perfect. Now, step 4. Now this is something we got to keep in mind throughout the process. We want to make sure that the vehicle trans temp does not get above 85 degrees. Now if you have it on your instrument cluster where you can scroll through the vehicle info and find a trans temp, great. Keep that in mind and monitor it as you're doing everything from the driver's seat. If you do not, you're going to need a scanner hooked up to. We want to make sure it stays at 85 degrees. Reason why is trans fluids, like a lot of different fluids, as it gets hotter, its viscosity changes, your fluid level is going to change based off of the temp of the fluid. Well, we're not using a dipstick or any kind of indicator to gradually check that. We're actually using a fill plug and what pours out or what we need to put in. So try to keep it around 85 degrees or less. If it does get too high after that, we need to go ahead and turn the vehicle off, let the trans temp come back down to normal, and then we'll have to repeat the process. So keep an eye on that. 85 degrees. Step 4, keep that in mind.